Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz was released as the launch title for the Nintendo Wii, all the way back to 2006. Most fans agree that this game is bad, or under the most favorable lens, a mixed bag. Banana Blitz has introduced a new aesthetic, removed the challenge mode that made Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 classics, and has a completely revamped physics and control system. It added new character stats, had lackluster minigames, and not to mention introduced a flashy new gimmick that critically damaged the level design. Despite this list of negatives, the game went on to sell over 1.2 million copies. Now, we're gonna play a little quiz here, a little guessing game. What's more likely? This game sold that well because it was genuinely good, or this game sold well because it was a launch title for a new console that was successful and also thrived off the goodwill benefit from the original games? Real thinker. Whatever we may see is the correct answer to that question, Sega was certainly convinced by the former. And so from here, Sega would recontextualize what Super Monkey Ball's identity was to its fans. This transformation came in waves. Firstly was Sega's insistence that gimmicks were the future of the series, which isn't a huge surprise given the era. I mean, Nintendo was doing stuff that you had to dance on and throw in the air. The next game, Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, would force the balance board on the player, like all great games do. Or you could choose the Wiimote and Nunchuck, because who doesn't like to choose between dog shit and dog crap? The next wave comprised of games that weren't really bad, but didn't capture the spirit of the series in any form, feeling like Sega was trying to find a halfway point between the classics and crap. These games are of course Super Monkey Ball 3D and Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits. The former was a 3DS launch title that was devoid of challenge and was super boring, only containing a story mode, and it didn't retain any semblance of the classic games. Now, Banana Splits was a closer step to the classics, trying to handshake with the fans of Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 with a challenge mode, but there were two fatal flaws that killed this game. Unfortunately, despite its charming levels, cute aesthetics, and solid gameplay structure, it's ruined by the fact that the controls were worse than basically every other game in the series. But the more important flaw was that it was on the goddamn PS Vita, so only about 30 people living on the planet could even play it. From there, Monkey Ball died for 7 years. That's not a joke. It literally died for 7 years. Oh, I guess there was Monkey Ball Bounce. It died for 7 years. The franchise would make a pseudo return though starting in 2019, receiving 2 HD remakes. This began with Banana Blitz's HD, which, while not being particularly good, was ultimately a fine product. Look, it took a game that was unplayable and made it playable. For modern Sega standards, that's a masterpiece, okay? 2 years later would lead us to Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, a remake of Super Monkey Ball 1, 2, and allegedly Deluxe. I don't know, they shoved Deluxe content into the side mode like a rash. So I reviewed this game back in 2021, just when it came out, and for the first time, I think, in the history of the show, I'm gonna admit I was wrong and change my opinion on a game. For the purposes of this video, it's important we address the elephant in the room, since the elephant is gonna slam its trunk into my butt when we get to the main review. I was wrong about Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. Don't get me wrong, at the time I genuinely did think it had a lot of positives. I wasn't trying to like shill or anything, because I still think it has some. The graphical overhaul was actually really well done, honestly, save for a few backgrounds. The new music was well composed, although not always fitting with the world themes. Character stats were removed, and for the first time since the golden age of the franchise, we were able to play as the classic designs of the characters. These weren't perfect models, but I'd take a jank classic model any day over the PP baby aesthetic of Banana Blitz. Now, one of my best friends, Greg Cube, made an absolutely fantastic video on Banana Mania. I absolutely recommend you check that video out. It's gonna go a lot more in depth into anything else I have to say today, because obviously this is not a Banana Mania re-review. But because it's really important to the thesis of this video, I'm gonna quickly go over the issues that I had with this game, just as a rapid fire round. Look, there was an inherent identity crisis in Banana Mania, as you were playing the levels from 1 and 2, but forced to play them with the jarring physics and gameplay conformity of Banana Blitz. Oddly, there was no multiplayer either. You know, one of the biggest fucking selling points of the GameCube games. On top of that, some of the classic minigames such as Monkey Target were borderline unplayable. And no, it just was unplayable. Remove the borderline. However, most crucial to ensuring that this game sucked was the fact that Sega had to remove challenge mode, the main meat and potatoes of the goddamn game they were remaking, from the game. I mean, it was technically there, but it was really no different than the story mode style of gameplay. Adding insult to injury, there were no lives, no point to collecting bananas besides to buy costumes that you could buy after 3 hours of gameplay, there were no scores, and while I don't mind if people want to play Super Monkey Ball in this style, I believe it should have been optional instead of unilaterally forced on the players. Super Monkey Ball 1 only had 110 stages. However, the game design philosophy was not centered around just figuring out how to get to the goal and moving on to the next floor. It was more about if you could get good at the game and beat the levels in sequence without gaming over. This change inherently makes a difference between a game you could beat in an afternoon and a game that you spend weeks, months, maybe even years on and off grinding, trying to beat. You try to get good, and it feels genuinely addicting and satisfying, which is a safer alternative to drugs. Super Monkey Ball's original vision wasn't to be a game that you just run through and beat, only to be thrown away next to your copy of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on your basement floor. It was meant to be a game that you studied, one that each and every floor would inevitably grow to become memorable in your mind, one that challenged the players. It was difficult, and I'm sure it did piss off a lot of kids.
Which is good. It's important to teach them early that life sucks.
The quickly developed sequel, Super Monkey Ball 2, would take this concept and expand upon it further. Firstly, there was a story mode now, where you would just focus on the levels and beating a traditional game. However, this was only presented as an alternative to challenge mode. Actual challenge mode was the same exact structure as Super Monkey Ball 1, but the difference was you were able to get more lives than you could in the predecessor with the play points. This meant that you still had to get good to some extent, but this also introduced options, because you could now play this game with 99 lives or 1 life. I mean, do you want to play this game with 1 life? Probably not, but I mean, go for it. Live your best life, although that sounds like a horrible life. So yeah, in 2021, Banana Mania just said, screw all of that, you're gonna play this game like it's Banana Blitz, you douchebags. Get to the end of the goal and move on. It's fine. There's an element of replayability, I guess, in the time attack mode and the missions, but the actual arcade vision of the classics was absolutely abandoned. Sega in general seems to have some sort of fear about arcade games in 2024. The rumored Crazy Taxi revival, for example, seems to be completely abandoning its arcade roots for open worlds. And sure, why don't I, as a content creator, go become a firefighter? That will work out great.
Banana Mania is kind of a game that it felt painful to sour on and feel worse about over the last 3 years or so. My rose-colored glasses just became clear. I think today's Banana Rumble video is sort of like my apology and way to rectify that I was way too positive on this game when it came out. I'm trying to do good for this world, and that's clearly by doing Monkey Ball reviews.
In February of 2024, you know, like 8 months ago, I speak like it was a decade ago, Nintendo would host a partner direct. In said direct, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble was revealed to the world. And you know what? It seemed fairly promising at the time. There were levels that resembled the design philosophy of something you'd see in Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. The backgrounds I noticed were way more detailed, more in depth than the puke purple and green backgrounds of Banana Blitz. There were unique themes too, like candy. I like candy. And co-op seemed to make some sort of return, both local and online. We learned that there would again be a story mode and 200 new levels, which is the most that a new Super Monkey Ball game has ever had. So all in all, initially, I was pretty cautiously optimistic, but there were definitely things that I was concerned about. I didn't see a challenge mode, there were no lives to be seen in the UI shown, and there was also a new gimmick of spin dashing. Just gonna call a spade a pile of crap, I never really liked the jump in Banana Blitz. I know, that's a huge surprise. I felt like that it was used as a crutch for level design, and in turn, made the game not only a lot worse, but just more of like a platformer. But whatever, I tried to put this spin dash aside because I wanted to be positive about Banana Rumble. I wanted this to save the series and be a game changer for Super Monkey Ball.
I want to dispute a notion about me, okay? I don't enjoy being negative. Okay, so I do. But I wanted this game to not only be good, but to be great.
However, the next few months were kind of odd. It's important to note that Banana Blitz HD and Banana Mania had really solid marketing campaigns. There was a Twitter account for the franchise that was consistently posting and engaging with the fans, and for Banana Mania, bigger creators and relevant community members were a focus of the team. Some content creators would get boxes, and a lot of creators, including myself and the EE Podcast members, got a free copy of the game to review it. For the first time in my life, I felt like Monkey Ball was a genuine, thriving community.
And this time around, the Twitter posted like 5 times in the first 2 months.
It kind of picked up a bit later, but this marketing approach was much more corporate feeling and boring compared to the first 2 games. There were times that I forgot this game was even coming out, and it just started to get worse. Oh boy, did it get worse. Before the game even released, Sega revealed DLC characters for $5 a pop that were slowly unveiled. These included Sonic and Tails, which, were in Banana Mania for free. They also just ripped the Amy and Knuckles models out of Sonic Superstars, and that's a cheap shot, right? Because, these are beloved characters. I don't blame anyone for getting excited or for even caving in to buy it, but, $5 for a character skin with no new levels or content? It should have just been $5 for every character. I mean, even for a community that's fairly optimistic most of the time, I saw a lot of criticism for this. The other 2 characters were Beat, who was once again free in Banana Mania, and Axel from Crazy Taxi. And coincidentally speaking, these are the 2 revivals that Sega is about to butcher. I'm just gonna say it how it is. They're gonna f it up. There's more DLC coming. I don't know if that'll be revealed during the production of this video. If there are, editor's note, just add it here.
Hi, I got nothing. I don't really know what to do with this segment. How are you guys doing? Doing well? Is your life doing well? We don't get to sit and talk that much, okay? I think about all these games I have, all these consoles, and I'm like, am I ever gonna review these all? Am I really gonna get to all the games I want to get to before my time is up on this planet?
I got nothing. Let's just move on. All right, so this video is going to be kind of fairly negative, so I do want to talk about something I feel very positive about. This is unscripted, so I'm sorry if it's horrible. This is Banana Rumble, the package that you get for $50, which I gotta say, $50 is not that bad of a price, especially if you consider the content that you get in this game. There's 200 levels, there's a story mode, there's online stuff. Most importantly, though, you actually get a very nice package. So let's actually open that up. So you get a little, game. Obviously, it's good that they have the game in here. More importantly, I guess, you get a little adventure book. So I don't know if they're still doing this with the physical copies, but this came with mine. So yeah, you get all these pages. You get art somewhere in here of the beta. So there's, or not beta, but early designs. So you get all those. You get some characters that didn't, make it in. I don't think any of these characters made it in, especially this guy. I don't remember him at all. No offense. So yeah, it's pretty nice. I like this little book. This book is probably one of the better things about this game. Maybe it should have been 40, but what's $10 extra, just don't eat Chipotle that day or something. Anyways, back to actually being scripted and professional. Well, we can review the social media and the box all day, but we have a game to play. Booting up the game, we have a tutorial. Whatever, here we get thrusted into story territory immediately. There's a new monkey, Palette, who teaches Ai about the spin dash. So this game, like Super Monkey Ball 2 before it, has a story mode with cutscenes. Now, I'll say for the record that Monkey Ball 2's story isn't anything insane. However, it was charming, and at the very minimum, wasn't just a copy of something like Super Mario Bros. It had personality, with unique characters and clever moments. Banana Rumble's story is, really surface level. Again, I'm not saying 2's wasn't, but here's the thing, right? There are way too many characters here. In 2, you only really had 6, being the main 4, and Dr. Badboon and his assistant, who didn't even really talk that much. Here you have 6 monkeys, 3 of these random animal characters who don't contribute literally anything at all to the story, and Palette and her evil dad. As a result, some characters say almost nothing the entire story. It's just so, cluttered here. Whatever, here's what this boils down to, alright? There's a legendary banana or whatever that's supposed to taste really good, and Palette, who's inspired by her missing dad, wants to recruit the gang to help find the Ooperts. After Flarlick, nothing matters to me anymore. The problem with this being a get the collectible story is that it's honestly just a bit of a cop-out. I mean, the story gets very formulaic very fast. It boils down to the monkeys finding a new world, nothing happens, yippee, repeat till the end. They're chased by the aforementioned animal people, and I don't really know why. I mean, they try to be sort of a Team Rocket sort of thing, but they don't do anything at all. adds nothing to the story. Eventually, the evil boss guy founds Pallet, who's his daughter. Oh my god, big plot twist, and takes the ooh parts. I unironically think there's a chance the story was developed by AI. I'm not saying it was, I'm just saying there's like a 10% chance it was possible. Pallet goes with her dad instead of sticking by the group. The evil villain clowns rescue the group for no reason, and she is revealed to be a bloody liar and a thief. And after going through all this hell, the gang doesn't really give a crap. Yeah, it's fine, dude, whatever. She's old as out for profit. We're just all friends, chumming it up. The evil guy gets taken out of its spell, and the monkeys get the golden bananas. Riveting.
I really do want to emphasize that I was not expecting a masterpiece here. Super Monkey Ball 2's definitely wasn't. I don't even like story in like my Sonic games, for instance. I am okay with a game not having an incredibly complex story. But just compared to Monkey Ball 2's story, what the hell happened here?
Like, okay, let me sum up. Like, 2's story is infinitely better. 2 starts with an immediate threat. The village is under fire, and each chapter has a distinct event that happens, whether that be a whale eating a group or a volcano exploding. Like, you can never guess what'll happen next, and it makes you want to keep playing. The majority of Rumble is, again, literally just showing up to each world with maybe a very minor plot development each time. And the writing is just so cheesy and boring. Like, okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, because ultimately, what's a story to a game, right? Like, it could be the worst story of all time, and it would not matter if the gameplay was good. This is not why I consider this game lackluster. It's just something I felt I needed to talk about. No. Why I don't like Banana Rumble comes down to a few factors. It introduced a new aesthetic, removed the challenge mode that made Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2 classics, has a completely revamped physics and control system, it re-added character stats, it has lackluster minigames, and not to mention introduced a flashy new gimmick that critically damaged the level design.
Do you guys see what I did there? Do you want me to explain the joke? I don't know if you want me to explain it. Just let me know.
All right, let's break this down one by one. So firstly, there's another new aesthetic here. It is sort of refreshing to me that we don't have the Banana Blitz aesthetic for a change, but what the hell are these designs, dude? II has buck teeth now, which looks like some Cocoa Melon tier shit. I made fun of this 10 years ago in a really old review I made of Banana Blitz where I'm like, they can't possibly make II worse, but they did. All right, so I guess let me do this one more time just as a future-proof measure. How else are they gonna make II worse? What's next? He's gonna have a rubber ducky in his back pocket with a jar of peanut butter on his left ear as he's lifted up by a band of misfit puppies while dreaming about Cheez-Its and committing tax fraud. Baby still has the visor, which I always thought was taking a funny joke and ruining it, because in the originals, Baby was just some random guy that was with the gang, but in the manuals, it said he was from the future, which is hilarious. Believe it or not, subtlety is sometimes the best way to tell a joke, and the developers kinda ruined it by making it his entire personality. I mean, everyone else looks like fine, or at least not much worse than Banana Blitz at a minimum. I don't even think this design is as bad as Banana Blitz, but it just feels frustrating to me that the developers refuse to ever go back to the tone of the original games, especially when we took a massive step forward in the last game by reintroducing the classic aesthetic to a new generation. Like, the classic character designs and even the backgrounds of the golden era were way more aesthetically pleasing. It's just unmatched to me. The game had a certain tone to it, one that I've just never been able to put into words, although I've tried plenty over the years. The characters weren't unnecessarily cartoony. I mean, they were cartoons, don't get me wrong, but they felt grounded. The developers presented an aesthetic that really hadn't come to define any other video game. So like, yeah, this isn't as bad as Banana Blitz, and I think newer characters like Pallet are fine. It's just this weird middle ground between the two games that pleases no one. As mentioned earlier though, the backgrounds are a lot better than Banana Blitz, but they're still just kind of off-putting to me. Like, there's stuff in the background, there's things to look at, they're at least not a gradient or simple texture, but they look kind of bad in terms of graphical fidelity. Can someone explain to me what the hell this Super Nintendo looking water is doing in this game? Again, let's go to the classics for a second. The backgrounds of the classic games were breathtaking for the time and still impress me to this day. Look at this lava background, for instance. It looks damn good. Or the storm background from Super Monkey Ball 1. These have definitely aged a bit, but they're still so endorphin building to look at. And I find new facts about these backgrounds every time I look at them. Like, there's a rubber duck in the background of Monkey Ball 2's washing machine. Who knew that? And then in Rumble, for instance, there are detailed backgrounds like they have just as many objects, but they don't look good, or at a very minimum, lack the distinct Super Monkey Ball style. On top of that, the frame rate is super inconsistent now. I've read that the frame rate originally was 50 FPS, and in an update was upgraded to 60, but it still always just feels like 50 to me, which is just bizarre. There are some levels that still absolutely horribly take the frame rate. I'm not gonna say the classics never had frame dips. I've played 2 so much that I could tell you the exact levels that do, but the presentation in this game just makes it feel so cheap to me. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a complete product. I want to say that for most games on the Switch, this would be fine, and this is a Switch exclusive, so there's no PS4 version or PC version yet that are absolutely better. And overall, it's a completely playable game. It's not ruined by the aesthetics or the performance issues. It's just, to me, a continuation of the loss of identity and memorability presented in Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. Like, you're stripping the series away from a defining feature.
One thing I do want to say is I know I'm talking about Monkey Ball 1 or 2 here, but really think about it, why do you think that is? There were 2 of them, and they were peak gameplay that they completely abandoned, because I have to keep talking about these games because all the crap they're introducing ain't working. It ain't working.
We're circling back real quick to the core issue with Banana Mania. There is no challenge mode in this game. There are no lives. There are no score. You play the 200 levels once each to win, and that's it. There's no reason to replay this game. Again, like Banana Mania, there are achievements, there's collectibles in the levels, but I cannot stress to you how much the lack of lives strips away Super Monkey Ball's identity. I don't remember most of the levels in this game because you do them once and move on forever.
A few weeks before the release of Banana Rumble, my good friend and occasional collaborator, JeffCompass, wrote a little essay on why lives in challenge mode should be in Monkey Ball. So with his permission, I'm gonna read off some of the lines that I think most stand out here, just so you can hear a second perspective and I don't have to repeat the same paragraph a 5th time.
The problem I have is when they still try to cater to people who want Monkey Ball to be easy. The accessibility options are good and logical, but when lives get removed and replaced with nothing, it bothers me a lot. With the original games, it wasn't hard just for the sake of it. It was integral to the progression of the game. They locked the minigames behind play points, which scaled based on how well you played, and obviously there were extra stages that you unlocked by not dying too much. This gave the games instant replayability and a goal that the player wants to overcome. He ended it by saying, "Either way, this game looks great, but I feel like until they find a way to integrate the arcade influence of the original, there will always be a part of this game that feels underwhelming or underdeveloped. To be honest, I don't know if this current era of Monkey Ball could ever be above a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, I'm back. The last line is just it, and you might assume from my negative tone of this video that I would give this game like a 4. And no, it is a 6 or a 7 at least. It's funny because for all the monkey poo I give this game, I don't actually think this game is bad. It's just a bad Monkey Ball game. As a platformer that you sit down and play for a weekend, or for people who don't care about the original games, it's a fun little time, right? Like, you go to the goal, you experience a level as if it was supposed to be a little challenge. There is actual fun to be had here. It's just not the fun that I, a classic Super Monkey Ball fan, am looking for in this franchise. If I wanted to play a platformer where the only focus was to clear the levels, I'd play Super Mario Galaxy, or I would play Kirby in the Forgotten Land. I want to point to Arlo's review, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, because it's really the first time I've seen this addressed by a big YouTuber. He was a lot more positive towards Rumble, but his original Banana Mania review had him saying he was a bit bored with the game because there weren't really reasons to replay it. Keep in mind, he had never played a Super Monkey Ball game up to that point, or not played it much. His feelings, though, are a prime example of how Super Monkey Ball has been diminished, and I personally take that feeling and transfer it to how I feel about Rumble. Sega's response to the replayability issue seems to be focusing on the idea that Super Monkey Ball is a speedrunner's haven. Now, Super Monkey Ball games do get at least some level of speedrunning activity, but it's maybe a few hundred people at most who I see really speedrun these games, and that's kind of a stretch. It's a popular marathon run to watch, don't get me wrong, there is a scene for it, but generally speaking, I feel like Sega uses this as a crutch to avoid the main replayability criticism that Super Monkey Ball gets. Either way, challenge mode being gone is what ruins this game for me. It should have been here, live should have been here, or should have at least been an option. I'll stress again, for people who want to play these games with no lives and treat it like a platforming series, that's fine. All I'm calling for is for an option to be there for the players who don't. And I'm spending a lot of time talking about it, but that's really my main issue with the modern Monkey Ball franchise and why they still haven't won me back to this day, despite there being 3 fucking games. But even then, right, there's still the revamped physics and controls. It's not revamped from the modern era, it's just a continuation of the trash we saw in Banana Blitz and Banana Mania. What makes the classic era so charming to me in terms of gameplay is that you could do the exact same inputs on any level and get basically the same outcome every time. It's the whole reason that speedrunning strats like pause frames work. Here, I don't feel like there's any sort of consistency. Every bounce is a jump that has you hanging on to goddamn dear life. In the classic games, flying in the air was scary, but it felt like you had control. Here, not really. When I'm chucking my monkey through the skies like a candy wrapper in a tornado, I pretty much just accept that I'm dead. This game isn't without its broken moments either, because sometimes a game just doesn't work. There are spin dash paths returning from Banana Blitz. As some characters, these are perfectly fine, but as Baby, you sometimes don't even get speed on them. You have to like spin dash into them. This could have and should have been found in playtesting. That was one of my issues with Banana Blitz. They didn't find that Gon Gon was basically unplayable on some levels. Like, is it that hard to get playtesters to test the story mode for each level? Like, am I missing something here? Like, fuck. But this leads us into the next issue, which I believe is what causes this in both games. Character stats, which were introduced in Banana Blitz, make their not so grand return after being missing from Banana Mania. These may not be as pronounced as they were in Banana Blitz, but conceptually I always thought this idea was so unhealthy for Super Monkey Ball. Like, okay, if I'm giving Banana Mania anything, it's this. There were no character stats. They took a step in the direction of the originals. See, here's the thing, right? Banana Rumble maybe took a few steps forward net, like having the detailed backgrounds and better level design, but equally took a step back with things like the character stats. In the GameCube titles, there was a distinct charm to being able to choose whatever character you want and not have to be on a different playing field than your friends, or in this case, random people on the internet. Now, there are characters that are absolutely useless. Like, basically, from what I know, Baby is the only good character for the speedrun. And in this game, characters like Mimi are horrible. Like, who wants to play with these stats? Is this some sort of joke? Even characters that are better than average are useless. Why on earth would you play as Yan Yan, for instance, when Baby is better? Even if you have a favorite character or a character design you like, do you really want to play this game with a handicap on your stats for no real reason when there's always going to be a character who's better than yours? And I guarantee you, whatever DLC characters are coming are going to be downright broken, just to convince the players to spend an additional $5 buckaroos. Character stats set a terrible precedent for this franchise back in 2006, and I am astounded they came back after being gone for a game. I'm going off the rails a bit in general here because I'm really pissed off, but I feel like Sega just doesn't know what to do with Super Monkey Ball. They take some stuff from the classics while taking an equal amount of stuff from Banana Blitz. Look, this game is better than Banana Blitz. It's even better than Banana Mania, but they just can't let Banana Blitz go, and honest to God, I don't understand why.
With how Sega treats Banana Blitz, right? You would think they treat this and think of this as some astounding Sega masterpiece and classic that needs to be remembered forever. Something like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It sold well, okay? This Banana Blitz sold fine, but it wasn't like a runaway success. It has a Metacritic score of 74. Monkey Ball 2 has an 87 and is treated like a fucking joke. Why?
So why does Sega cling so hard to a game that's at absolutely most favorable just okay? I don't know, I can only speculate, but I've noticed this sort of pattern with other franchises before. Specifically, the franchise I most compare this to is Paper Mario. Sticker Star, as we all know, is one of the worst Nintendo games ever made. I don't think there's much of a discussion there. When its sequels, Color Splash and Origami King, would release, these games were technically improvements over it, but maintained a lot of flaws that Sticker Star introduced. Specifically, the franchise still has no tangible EXP system, making battling a complete waste of time, and there's a lack of engaging characters and deeper stories. I just don't get why game developers do this. Anything I come up with here is just conjecture. We don't have any real answer and probably never will. So I want to emphasize that before putting in my guess, but it just feels to me like this is some sort of arrogance. To me, it feels like the developers almost feel like that the game we spent so much time on and felt good about failed, so you're gonna like it, deal with it. Now, I don't think the game developers literally sit around like Wreck-It Ralph villains or anything, plotting shouting how to ruin a series, but it just does feel like there's at least some level of disregarding the fans and wanting to say to them that the way we see this is better and you're goddamn wrong. Why else would you remake two games that were borderline masterpieces and force Banana Blitz elements on top of it? It's ridiculous. Even the TTYD remake, as good as it was based on Origami King's engine and was only 30 FPS, which pissed off a lot of fans. There are just these moments in both series where I'm just like, and there's levels in Rumble that just feel out of Banana Blitz. There's so many that retain the stupid dash pads that I always felt made the gameplay feel cheap, and is a concept that I inherently see as uninspired. It's not a small amount either. They appear constantly. Like, I'll take a minute and talk about the levels as a whole real quick. I think they are on average good. There are a lot of levels that feel right out of Super Monkey Ball 1 or 2. There are also levels that are completely trash, like this one where you spend 20 seconds pushing a manhole. Equally speaking, there's levels where you just sit around and wait. Fun. And if you die 50 seconds in, you gotta do it all over again. Who signed off on this? There's levels where you wait in the classics, but like, I counted here, and there are almost 20 levels where you wait to some extent in this game, and they drive me nuts, man. They just absolutely drive me nuts. As said, there are 200 new levels here, and that's not a bad amount. 100 of these are in the story mode, and the other 100 are more challenging levels that come after, reusing the themes with different lighting and a specific extra mode. And the last 100 are again pretty good, with some significant low points. But here's the thing, right? All 200 of these levels could have been the best in the entire series, but because there's no challenge mode or significant reasons to replay the game, I introduce to you my most philosophical and thought-provoking question. Who the fuck cares? Like, okay, if you're not a speedrunner, do you replay Super Mario Galaxy over and over and over again? You might think it's a great game, and of course it is. It's nearly a masterpiece with some flaws, but you probably have only done a handful of playthroughs of it in your life. Monkey Ball is trying to resemble that kind of game now, but with shorter levels, designed in the style of an arcade game. It just doesn't make sense. I've sighed so many times in this review that my thermometer is up to 90 degrees inside of here. My last real point on the gameplay is that they added a spin dash. You can now charge and fly across the stage. And this is a fairly fun mechanic, but just like the jump from Banana Blitz, it feels like a crutch. There's a flux of levels where I'm like, wow, they designed all this and it would be so much fun to figure out and explore what to do, but I can just skip over all of it. The spin dash serves as an advertising vehicle for speedrunning the game now. I don't think it's as bad as the jump. It doesn't like ruin the game or anything, but it just contributes again to this identity crisis from Super Monkey Ball. It just feels like a medium between Banana Blitz and the classics, the former of which no one is asking for a return of. But let's entirely ignore the single player content for a moment here. Super Monkey Ball, since its gameplay debut, has always had engaging and addicting minigames that you could play at a party or with your friends and have a damn good time. You can find countless stories online about a group of friends that gather to play Monkey Target or Monkey Racing. Not all of these minigames were good, but most were. Rumble does not have traditional minigames now. Oh man, this online-centric battle royale Fall Guys style minigames. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna go in depth in these. It's just horrible. The frame rate absolutely tanks for one. You don't even get to choose the minigames. It takes way too long to actually find a lobby, and the actual gameplay in some of these just isn't fun. What the hell am I supposed to be doing here, man? This whole system is terrible. There was something to the idea that you could play monkey billiards or golf at a party, or hell, by yourself. They were fleshed out modes. These were games that I could see being on Steam individually for $5 or something. These new mini games just feel like a level 10 identity crisis for Super Monkey Ball. It does add some replayability, I guess, since you have to play daily to get new costumes, and they're adding new levels and modes constantly, which I'm sure some people are excited for. But this just isn't it, man. It's just not it. And to be fair, there's an additional reason I'm not gonna go too in depth here. This could have been absolutely perfect, and it's not the style of gameplay that I particularly enjoy or look for in video games. So this mode, bottom line, was never gonna be for me. But based off of other reviews and just generally what I've seen and heard from friends, this mode is essentially universally disliked. Find me here in a year waiting for a lobby to fill up because no one is gonna be playing this. There's an online co-op for the levels as well, but you can only play 10 levels at a time before it boots you out and you have to restart your lobby with a new password, which takes up to 5 minutes, especially if you have that one friend who has to take a phone call in between every lobby. I'm not roasting anyone, by the way, because this person is usually me. This kind of ruined this mode for me. When you're actually playing, it's fairly fun, but this is the only form of co-op now. It's basically just monkey versus from the classics. They brought back co-op and they added online in ways no one asked for, dude. Look, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble is not a bad game, but it is a bad Super Monkey Ball game, and this isn't much of a step forward for this franchise. This hurts me to say as a lifelong supporter of this franchise, but I won't be buying any more Super Monkey Ball games or not reviewing them unless they have a challenge mode. It feels like since 2019, they keep making a new game, and while they are somewhat of a step in the right direction, Sega continues to ignore fans such as myself. I can only throw $50 for a new game so often with minor steps in the right direction before I just can't do it anymore. I cannot keep buying these new games with only a 0.5 increase in the score. It's just becoming ridiculous. I've been a supporter of this franchise since Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. I rented those games as a 5-year-old and grew up alongside these series in both the good and bad times. I have a ton of love for the classic days of this franchise, and not to get arrogant, but I feel like I have a personal connection to Super Monkey Ball as it pertains to YouTube. I was one of the first people to make a video on adventure back in 2016. I've made top 10 lists that mutuals have said to me before I've watched this, and I reviewed most of the games in this franchise seriously in depth before getting kind of burnt out on it. I've spent so many hours talking about these games to you guys over the course of nearly 10 years on and off, and there becomes a point where I just can't do it anymore. I don't enjoy Monkey Ball in its current state, and I'm tired of giving this franchise endless chances to no avail. Banana Rumble is again better than Banana Blitz, and it's better than Banana Mania, but they are still clinging to game design ideas that I despise. For as many improvements Banana Rumble makes to the franchise, there are just as many step backs or status quo checks from games that I consider outright horrible. I feel pretty alone on this, quite honestly. The Monkey Ball community either doesn't agree with me here or just isn't vocal about it. And I get why, right? Like, the series did die for 7 years. It's more appreciative to be happy that it's back and support new entries even if they're not ideal. I feel like this is valid, and I don't want to use my platform to disparage a fan base, but I do wish that Monkey Ball fans would at least vocalize frustrations more, because if Sega just hears endless positivity, they aren't going to improve the franchise in ways that we need them to. Maybe it's unpopular to say this, but I feel like it's okay to take a step back sometimes and criticize a product that's fundamentally flawed. We don't have to accept a game just because the series risks being dead again. I blame myself too for some of these issues. I wasn't completely clear-minded during my Banana Mania review, and that could have personally contributed to the decline of the franchise. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble and this vision for the series just isn't for me. If you enjoy it, that's fine. In fact, if there's an outpouring of support for this as the future of the franchise, and I'm just a whisper in the wind, I do think the majority should get their way, since they are the ones who are most active and financially supporting the franchise. But that doesn't change the fact that I still think my words are important and deserve to be said nonetheless, even if this video gets a lot of pushback. I hope that you enjoy this game. In fact, I'd be honored to be a minority on the consensus here. But if you're not, if you're in that small group that thought this game wasn't it, well, you're not alone, and I'm here for you, alright? And now it's time to face the onslaught of fans who are going to be after me with pitchforks and knives because this is their favorite game of all time, and I insulted it personally, right in the jugular. I'm ready. I don't think anyone actually cares about this game.